which is the fiscal policy, right? The word fiscal comes from a Latin word which is fiscus, and this word means the treasury. So we can say that a policy linked with the treasury is called the fiscal policy. So we can comprehend the definition that a policy of the government by which the government manages its own receipts, expenditures, or the deficits is called the fiscal policy. So we can say that the fiscal policy basically caters two aspects of the government. One is the receipts and the other is the expenditure, right? So policy of the government with regard to treasury deals with the receipts of the government and the expenditure of the government, which is called the fiscal policy. The receipts can be further divided into two parts. One is the revenue receipt and the other is the capital receipt. What receipts are called revenue receipts? You see, the receipts which are recurring in nature. This means that the receipts which are periodic or occur to the government periodically. One condition. The other condition is those receipts do not create any financial burden on the government. So when the two conditions meet, the receipts are called revenue receipts. One, the receipts should be recurring, periodic, and the second, they should not create any debt on the government. They are called the revenue receipts. Examples are tax receipts, right? For example, income tax or the GST. They occur at a fixed period of time, say quarter or the month or the year, and they do not create any burden on the government. The tax paid by the individual is actually the income of the government, and we can't claim on the tax we have paid. So revenue receipts can be further classified into two examples. One is tax receipts, other are the non-tax receipts. For example, the interest received by the government on the loans paid to the state governments or the other countries. So interest received or the dividends which the government earned out of the profit of the PSUs. So the dividends, interest received or any penalty or the fee received by the government comes under the non-tax receipt. Along with the tax receipt, they collectively make the revenue receipt. As per the budget 2018-19, the government plans to receive approximately 17,25,000 crores of the revenue receipts, right? When you add this capital receipt to this receipt, it becomes the total receipt of the government. So what are the capital receipts? Now let's see. Those receipts which do not come here come under the capital part. For example, the receipts which are non-recurring in nature. It means it may be a one-time receipt of the government, and the receipts which may create any debt to the government comes under the capital receipt. For example, disinvestment, which is the sale of the government shares in the open market, is a receipt of the government which comes under the capital receipt. For example, the sale of government other assets. For example, the government plans to sell Air India. In that case, the receipts to the government would come under the capital receipt because they are not recurring in nature. The third is the fresh loans which are borrowed by the government, right? The government borrows money from the market, right? Because it often have more expenditure and less receipts. So that loans cover the debt part of the government, right? So that loans create the debt to the government. So they come under the capital receipt of the government. Collectively, these items come under the receipts of the government. Now let's see the expenditure. Similar to the receipt part, we can divide expenditure into two parts. One is the revenue expenditure and the other is the capital expenditure. Right? In the prelims, many questions have come on the part that which of the following expenditures come under the revenue expenditure. Right? So we shall solve all those questions while answering this topic. The expenditure which is mainly going in the consumption and maintenance purpose of the government is called the revenue expenditure. So what all come under the revenue part? Let's see. The subsidies paid by the government to the public, for example, LPG subsidy, food subsidy, the subsidies come under the revenue expenditure part because they do not create any capital, rather they go in the consumption and the maintenance. Second, interest payments, right? The government borrows, here you can see the fresh loans. The loans which we have borrowed, we have to pay interest, and the interest is a totally wasteful expenditure. So we keep in the revenue part because it's for a consumption of the loans that we have taken. So interest payments are a part of the revenue expenditure. The third is the public administration expenditure. What is that? The salary of the collectors is a part of public expenditure. The salary of the school teachers of the government is a part of the public administration. And the last is the defense expenditure. Suppose we purchase Rafale, right? So Rafale is not an asset, right? It's purposely for the maintenance of the internal security. So that defense equipments we purchase, right? We use for some time, then we sell in the trash. So all these come under the revenue expenditure. The next expenditure is the capital, right? The expenditure which is of capital nature is called capital expenditure. For example, infrastructure expenditure, right? We make roads, dams, buildings, and we receive a money from the income of the infrastructure. But for this year, for which we are talking about, the expenditure made comes under the infrastructure or the capital expenditure. Second is the loans that we give, right? See, the loans that we give actually aims to earn for us, right? The government gives loan, it aims to earn interest, which we record where? In the non-tax receipts of the receipt part, right? So the loans given create capital for us because they generate interest for us, right? So you see, we have given the fresh loans, right? We have received the fresh loans in the receipt part, fine, and we pay interest over here. In the capital expenditure part, we have given the loans and we receive the interest in the revenue part. So interest by default is a revenue kind of receipt or the expenditure. So these two components make the expenditure and the receipts of the government. And many questions do come on the parts that which of them is revenue or which of them is capital. Now, if the expenditure part exceeds the receipts part, in that case, the government suffers a deficit which is called the fiscal deficit, or the deficit in the treasury of the government, right? So the expenditure exceeding the receipts comes under the fiscal deficit. And if the case reverses, that expenditure is less than the receipts, we can say in that case the treasury is in the surplus. So that is called the fiscal surplus, right? So this receipt exceeding expenditure makes surplus, and this receipt is low. If it's lower than the expenditure, it leads to the fiscal deficit. The government for the year 17-18, the government has released some data that for this year the fiscal deficit stands to be at 3.5% of the GDP, and for the year 2018-19 the government expects 3.3% of GDP as the fiscal deficit, right? So let's continue further. Thank you.